Okay, chicos, hola again. So let's start where we left off. We finished with A through H, and we are now on I. And as we mentioned before in the list of vowels or vocales, I always sounds like I. For example, Ignacio or Iglesia. One thing to remember about the letter I or I in Spanish is that it is considered a weak vowel. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along and when we learn about the accent rules in Spanish. But just remember that weak vowels, and there are only two in Spanish, okay? U and I are weak. Weak vowels in Spanish like to cling on to another vowel that sits beside them. So what does that mean? When we say the name Ignacio, Ignacio, fio is one syllable together, okay? That's what we mean. It's not fi-o. We don't say Ignacio. The I and the O just kind of blend in a little bit, okay? Likewise, iglesia, iglesia. So you hear the sia, I and A are together. We also make the same distinction when we say bien. So bien is one syllable. The I and the E kind of stick together, okay? It's not bien, it's bien. We'll talk a little bit about the letter U once we get there, but this is what happens with our I, okay? Okay. H, I, the next letter is J. J sounds like J, like Juan. Or like jirafa. So it's like a strong H sound again, okay? Sort of like the G in the next to an I or an I, like girar or Jerónimo. So there's your J. Then we have K, which has a K sound. Now, we hardly ever use K in Spanish because the letter C sounds just like the K, right, in K. So normally we'll use either a C or maybe a QE combination, something like that. The letter K is really only used to write non-Spanish words that need the letter K. For example, German Karl would be an example of using the letter K. Now we have L. L sounds like U, just like in English. For example, Lima or Laura. But if you have two L's together, it makes kind of a Y sound. Like you may notice, me llamo, me llamo. Te llamas, se llama. So two L's together, dos L's, make a ya sound. The next letter is M. Sounds like just like in English. For example, Marcos. Or Mateo. It's always an m. Next letter is N. Sounds like n, just like in English. For example, nunca. Or niña. Now you will notice there's an N right here, but there's an Ñ right there with a squiggly on top of it. That is our next letter of the alphabet, Ñ. And it is a letter all by itself. It is different from N. So spelling is important. There's a difference between some words when you spell them with an N versus an Ñ. We have one example of Ñ, and Ñ is nasal. It comes through your nose. Ñ, like almost saying canyon in English. So, niña, niño, año. Those are three really good examples of the Ñ. Now we have O, which is always pronounced O, as we mentioned before, like Olivia. Let's get another page. Okay. The next letter after O is P, like Pedro. Or papa, as in potato. Papa. Ku. Ku almost always works with u. For example, not always, right? But many times it will. So ku, you could say lots of question words like ¿quién? Has a k sound, right? ¿Quién? ¿Qué? So ku is a k. Next letter is R. A single R has kind of almost like a flapped D sound. It's like saying the word butter in American English really fast. British English, a double T is pronounced more like t on the tip of your tongue, butter. But in American English, we pronounce it a little farther back in our mouths, butter. Butter, 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 butter. If you can say that a whole bunch of times, that's going to give you a really good idea of the, as in, let's see, arte, arte. It's a flapped sound. Arte. The second R in the name Roberto. Roberto. You will notice there's two R's in that name, right? The second R has the flapped, like D sound, Roberto. But the first R, an initial R, is pronounced with a trill. Roberto. Also, if you have two R's together, carro, carro. So an initial R or double R has a trilled sound. We will talk about this more. If you actually practice saying butter, 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 as fast as you possibly can, you're going to practice where to place your tongue to make the trilled R sound. Ese sounds like S. It's always a S sound, like Samuel. And let's go ahead and pause here. This is going to be part 2. And then we'll finish up with part 3, okay? So hang on.